Thank you so much.
Thank you, Say.
You're welcome, sir.
Though I have only about 45 minutes to be around because I have to rush to another meeting, but I'll come back after.
Perfect, Dr. Richard.
Right,
we will be following a Q&A pattern for the panel session. And with that, I would like to start off with the very first question for today's discussion. And it's a question that is very important because the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. A lot of the burden of climate action and climate advocacy is on our shoulders. So the very first question I had for both Dr. Richard and Dr. Ash is, how can we change mindsets and mentor the youth of today to become climate leaders of tomorrow? So maybe Dr. Ash can begin.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be speaking together with Dr. Richard. Thank you once again for organizing this and for the really important question. To start off, I'd like to say that, I do believe that youth are leaders of today and tomorrow. And I think it's a very important issue to focus on because we want to be able to create a space where young people are able to take leadership in terms of protecting our planet. Certainly, one of the most important things in my experience has been to be able to create a space where young people are able to, one, be aware of what the implications are of climate, not only climate change, but very importantly, what climate action can do. And the important thing is to focus on opportunity. We know that we're in a situation where clearly we have a crisis on hand and we need to be able to deal with it. But the important thing is to focus on the element of hope. And we do have an element of hope that's with us right now, that faces us right now. And it's important that young people realize that we can take that opportunity that is before us and act. And I think that's a critical part of mentorship, because one of the things that can happen is that if we are only faced with all the challenges that lie before us and it's doom and gloom, it becomes very hard for young people to be able to focus on the hope, the positivity, and the opportunity. And I do want to highlight that we do have an opportunity. We have a window of opportunity. It is here now. So it's really important for us to act. And while, yes, individual actions will play a part, the important thing is that collective action will play a part. And so it's very important that we come together and take that action, not only in our lives, in our schools, in our communities, but also be able to call into question and vote into power governments, call them into account, and insist that the governments that we vote in are those that will serve us, that will serve our interests, because it is the young people that have a future ahead. And if we don't secure that future today, then what we are leaving for generations to come is nothing but a decimated planet. And so it's really important that young people are able to understand these issues and then also be able to act upon them, but act upon them at individual and collective levels and be able to create the systemic change that is necessary. We can't only direct effort at individual level and leave out the systemic. So I think that would be, one of the key things that I want to say. And then certainly, I believe that mentorship is a critical part of this, and therefore being able to guide and support, and also be able to bring together networks, because if you think back on moments in history that have shaped our world and changed the course of the future, it has been when young people have gotten together. And I just want to say that it's really, really important that we're able to identify the potential that is embraced by young people, and therefore creating spaces where youth are able to network. An important part of it is mentoring, but also bringing people together to be able to collectively make that change. And therefore, that's what I'm going to encourage all young people over here and those who are listening to be able to do. And that's what the focus of the BUP movement is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ash. And there were such powerful words right there. And I would like to direct the same question to Dr. Richard, because both of you all are mentors to a lot of young people like us. We come to you for a lot of things just to learn and move forward. So hence, I think there are no two better people who can tell us that what are some effective ways in which we can mold ourselves to becoming climate leaders? So Dr. Richard, the same question to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Moderator, if you allow me to call you like that, Priyanka, right? Yes, and I will build on what Ajab said. I think he has summarized it so nicely. But the key is that, let's put it in perspective. Actually, the young people are like the tip of the spear. They can tear through every challenge. But what they need is to self-believe that they are the ones they need. So what does that mean? It also means the area in which the young people are growing up in, the area of today is different from the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s. You have every tool, but you have every tool in their hands that the generations that came before them didn't have that opportunity. And as a result of that, sometimes they do not believe that they have what it takes to build themselves and solve problems. Then they get fixated with the problems and they reduce themselves to be part of the problem rather than being part of the solution. And so what needs to happen is to see every challenge as a disguised opportunity and to self-believe. And climate change, despite the fact that it is actually one of the worst issues that have ever happened in the human era, it is a challenge that is impacting every level of society, but it also presents an opportunity bigger than any other in the entire world. But that opportunity, the window of that opportunity is being closed, because if you look the entire world and you take the African continent, over 60% of the population is youthful. 12 million of them are graduating into the labor market each and every year. And they are competing with jobs that are not even there. And as a result of that, the joblessness and the unemployment level and disenfranchisement is increasing. But no one actually is looking at it from the perspective that if you are waiting for government to create jobs, government can never create the jobs for the 12 million people alone. Government role is not only to create, it's to create an enabling environment. And if you look across the entire African continent, I think we discussed it yesterday, every country do have a policy, whether it is climate smart agricultural policy, or whether it is energy policy, feed-in tariffs, or whether it is forestry policy. But no one is looking at how do I retool my skill to be able to develop an interest so that I can be able to just turn waste to briquettes. And that is a market opportunity. You do not need government to do that, but you need to self-believe and then avail yourself, because what I say is every young person should be able to avail his or herself to learn a skill, because your biggest ability is your availability. But when we call meetings like this one here today, how many of them are there? Let's also be honest. They do not show up. And because they don't show up, they miss opportunity. And when you miss opportunity, then definitely you cannot be able to blame any other person, because the only person to blame is yourself. And I think the other aspect, which is quite very, very important, is the aspect of not understanding that what matters in the world of today, whether you are young or you are old, is value. Value is not given. Value is acquired. And to acquire value, you need effort. And that effort means that you need to get up in the morning and use your two hands to learn a skill, to contribute to something that is bigger than yourself. And to be able to do that, you need to develop purpose. Purpose is, because the purpose of life is to be useful. It's usefulness. And to be useful, you must be able to contribute in a positive way to society. And that then takes me to the point of being useful also means that you need to be passionate. And passion, because passion is what actually drives people to do things. It's the fuel, I call it the new currency of now. But passionate to turn a challenge into an opportunity. Unless we do that, my worry is, and that worry is real, because unless we do that, the disenfranchisement, especially with young people today, will continue to increase. And they will continue to have a gap that is too big, an inspiration gap that is getting wider, a motivation gap that is getting wider, a passion gap that is getting wider. And then even when we have the resources in place, we will never have the people with the right skills to be able to turn that challenge into an opportunity. And development, transformational, climate resilient development will never be achieved.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. I think there were some very key points, both from Dr. Ash and Dr. Richard, the idea of working individually as well as collectively, the idea of value, the idea of passion. I think some key points that we need to imbibe within ourselves. And with that, I think I will hand it to Shay to take forward the next question.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Richard, actually, this is a question that I really love. I think I've asked you before, but I'm not sure if I have done, but I would like to ask you, could you tell us about innovative volunteerism? What inspired you to initiate this, and how you were able to get the youth of Africa to join this movement? I mean, because the first time I heard innovative volunteerism on when I saw it on Twitter, I just fell in love with that. I never knew it was attached to Dr. Richard, to be honest, but I just loved it. So I just want you to talk about that. How did you come about this idea, and how did you get people to join, and especially young Africans? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Say. And that's a very good question. And I knew that this was going to come. It always comes up all the time. And I think I will appreciate that, even though as I answer it, everyone should download a copy of my book and read it. It's free on my website, richardmanang.com. The point is this. I grew up in the northwestern part of Cameroon in a small village called Jinquin. Went to school. That shows that it's not an issue. Grew up in a poor family. That's not an issue. People grow up in poor families. The issue is not where you come from. The issue is what you do with what you have. Because of that, when I finally went to school and graduated and started my career, what I noticed, especially in the African continent, which is replicable to other parts of the world, is that projects alone will not be able to solve the monumental challenges that we face, especially that of climate change. That individual action, as Aj said, is not going to be enough. The biggest individual action is collective action. And because of that, project after project, implementation comes and goes, but the problems continues to perpetuate. And then when you look at the entire African continent, 257 million people go to bed hungry. You're getting into the labor market without jobs. And then we're having ecological degradation. We're having all these challenges compounding every year and every year. So I asked myself, if you were actually to do everything, how will you engage everybody in a way that the person contributes his own quota towards the solution process without necessarily having to wait and say what we are used to, that I do not have money, so I cannot do anything, which is the easiest excuse. And because of that, I thought through this, and this is actually captured in my book, and given the fact that we have a continent at the moment, 1.3 billion people increasing, we have the youthful population over 60% who are jobless, how will they get the jobs? But I noticed that we are not tapping into something that is quite very, very crucial in driving any transformational development, especially under the changing climate, where we need 50 billion if we are to hit 2 degrees. And currently in the continent, we need every year about 7 to 15 billion to implement. Where will the resources come from? And even if the resources were there, do we have the right skills? Because this is something we always miss. As a result of that, what I thought through was that if we are able to inspire a human being to see himself as a solution by retooling his or her skill, then that person, once you retool his skill and he or she is guided to leverage on inspiration and focus in turning a challenge into an opportunity, just focusing on the agro value chain, which currently is losing about 48 billion in the African continent. Just as an example, or the charcoal that that mothers in villages are using for cooking, and as a result of that, that is causing indoor pollution and killing them. If we are able to guide people and inspire them to just turn west to briquettes, that will solve a problem. And that then is the essence, the reason why I came up with this logic of innovative volunteerism, which is structured guidance, leveraging on inspiration, leveraging on motivation, and inspiring people, regardless of age, young at heart, and to retool their skills and tap into these hidden opportunities that are disguised as challenges, but do so in a way that they work with one another, where collectivism becomes the central stage, where selflessness, not selfishness, because a lot of people love to work alone. Selflessness trumps selfishness, and where collectivism trumps individualism, and where hopelessness gets overpowered by hopefulness. And that is the essence of innovative volunteerism, that we can collectively come together regardless of which organization you work, because organizations are people themselves. Without people, organizations will not function. And so even as an individual, somebody will tell you, I cannot do it because I am not in an organization. That's a lie. You can do it because you yourself, you are an organization. You yourself, your skills and talents can inspire someone to do it differently. And when we started it, people didn't believe because it was not a money-first approach that has been fronted most of the time. But when we started to inspire young people, and the few that started to showcase that they can then be able, regardless of educational level, use their skills to start doing something as we guide them, others started to follow. And we're tapping into that passion. And now this has become one of the biggest movements, not only in the continent, but even across the world. There are a lot of people who are practicing innovative volunteerism in India, in Latin America, in Europe, and they are reaching out to me all the time. So the essence of innovative volunteerism, as I've explained, is a mentorship tool, but more focus on a mindset change to see things that sometimes are regarded as challenges, but as opportunities. But knowing that you yourself, you can be able to turn that challenge into an opportunity and create not just impact, but also a legacy, which is self-fulfilling and at the same time what we need.
Wow, that's really mind-blowing. It's as if I've not seen your work before. This is mind-blowing, and I don't think any young African would not want to be a part of this, because one of our major problems is mindset issues, and then it's not because we don't have the willpower. We have the willpower, we have the strength, we have the capacity, the manpower is there, but there is this mental blockage. And then when that barrier is out of the way, and I think an average African youth would be unstoppable anywhere in the world. And that I really appreciate what you're doing, and I believe that a lot of people are seeing your impact, and they are changing every day, and the sky is your limit, sir. I'm 100% sure. Thank you, sir. So Priyanka, over to you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you, Dr. Richard. That was so inspiring. And I think not just the youth of Africa, but youth across the world will be very inspired to be a part of such a movement. So thank you so much for sharing that. And with that, I'd like to move to the next question and direct it towards Dr. Ash. Dr. Ash, the POP movement is a global youth movement with youth from every part of the world that are part of it, leading their movements, leading their action, their advocacy for the climate. So being the theme of climate literacy this year, firstly, I wanted to ask you, what are some ways in which, so firstly, the issue is that schools don't have climate education as an active part of learning. And that's, of course, a fight that we all are trying to have, where we are trying to push for schools to take it up. So apart from the fact that how can we have schools adopt climate education as a part of mainstream learning, additionally, how can youth educate themselves about climate and the issues that surround it in a more non-stream way? So if schools aren't providing that, where can the youth turn towards, or how can youth educate themselves and motivate themselves in that way? Thank you, Dr. Ash.
Sure. Thank you so much, Priyanka. That's a fantastic question, and actually lies at the heart of a lot of what the POP movement is about, because one of the things that we use as our tagline is youth inspired by knowledge. And I think the important thing is that we must understand, for us to be able to identify the opportunity and take that opportunity and act upon it, we must understand the fundamentals of the issues that we're dealing with, the science of climate change, to understand. In order to be able to actually identify solutions, we need to be able to fully grasp what the issues are. And therefore, your point about creating an environment which is stimulating and inspiring for youth within school and out of school environments is critical. So within a school environment, I think one of the key things is certainly we need to be able to work with teachers. In our experience, one of the things is that the most successful cases where youth are inspired and then take action. And the important part of that is really being able to practice it. We are not I want everybody here who's listening in to understand that we all have that potential. And it is about catalyzing that potential. It's about tapping into that potential and then being everything that we can be. And we can really only be everything we can be when we act and we inspire and we carry people with us. And therefore, I think the important thing is that even in a school environment, we must appreciate that not everybody's in a school environment, and particularly in the context of our life and work and world today. Most people are not in school, physically in school. And we know a lot of people who are not able to even go back to school if they ever were. So I think the important thing is that those who are privileged to be in a school environment, we need to have the leadership of the school, the teachers, to be carried along in this movement. And that means training teachers, because the moment we're able to do that, teachers are able to work with students. But oftentimes what we find is that teachers actually get left out of it, and students are actually way more informed. But working within the school system is very hard if the students are trying to do this without the support of teachers. That's not to say that it can't happen, but I again want to say that for everybody who's here and who's listening, that we all have the ability, everybody has the potential. It's about catalyzing that potential and therefore being able to act along with these tools. And knowledge is a phenomenal tool. And so I can't overstate that enough. And then there's a whole environment outside school. And I want to say that, traditional knowledge, and I know we're talking to so many people, young people from around the world right now, but there's a very important thing, that our local culture and our traditions and that indigenous knowledge is precious. And one of the reasons for the challenges that confront us, and again, I'm going to say flip it and look at the opportunities. And yes, we might be talking about the issue of climate change right now, but I want you to be able to do that with your life. Because remember this, there's always a silver lining. There's always an opportunity. And what I'm going to say is that with this issue that confronts us, we are faced with it because we've also departed from a lot of our indigenous knowledge. And at the moment we start to do that, we go away from what is actually natural, because over a course of time, that indigenous knowledge has been adopted. It's been built up over a period of time because of local culture and regions within which we're working. And the reason our indigenous communities and a lot of local communities are suffering is because we have thrown those out of the window. So I'm going to say, go back to being local. And that is not to say that we keep our minds closed to the many modern and advances that come our way. We want to be able to make the best of both, but we must be able to go back to the traditional understanding, because the moment we lose that, we're going to lose a lot of the fundamental basis on which actually societies have been built. So I'm going to say, in regard to knowledge, oftentimes, it's village leaders, it's people who've been there in the generations before. That wisdom is invaluable. And I'm going to ask young people to listen, keep your ears on the ground, and keep your heart in the right place. And I know with that we can move forward. And so I'm going to say that a lot of that is really what the inspiration is, to take young people forward. But we must be able to identify that we all have the capacity within us. And no matter what it is that we do, it is about being able to tap that potential and to nurture it. And I believe that mentoring, whether it comes from traditional knowledge or whether it comes from school systems or it comes from teachers or it even comes from peers, that is key to the success that we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ash. It's as a youth trying to do her bit every day, it's so inspiring to see the pop movement, Dr. Richard's movement of innovative volunteerism. These are, in a way, tools that we can tap into as well. Even if we are not being provided that support within our school systems, we definitely have such sorts of mentorship options outside our school realm. So thank you for opening those gates for us. And also the idea of going back to our fundamentals and staying true to where we come from. it's really what nature is all about as well. And thank you so much, Dr. Ash, for putting that point forward. And with that, I'll hand it to Shay to ask the next question. And I would like to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please keep it ready. We'll open the last 10 minutes of the session for a Q&A with the experts. Go ahead, Shay.
Sure. I just wanted to say another quick thing, which I think I failed to address, Priyanka, which is that, you said for those who are not within that system also, one of the key things is a forum like this. I must say that one of the key tools of inspiration is having young people in a space like this, or even in a field situation where we're able to look at and be inspired by and learn from. And so, I don't want to undermine, I don't want to say that everybody's in this, online and on this platform, but what I want to say is that we do have these opportunities, and therefore keeping our minds, hearts, and souls open to these opportunities is a key. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ash.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ash. That's fantastic. This question is going to be the last question for this session. And I will like Dr. Richard to answer first, then Dr. Ash. Actually, when we're talking about climate education, we have different organizations around the world. We have organizations like ours in India and also in Nigeria, trying to do their bit to, effect climate education projects in the schools. And like Dr. Ash said the other time, that it's very important that what works is trying to, educate the educators, so that they will be able to, teach their students, which is very, very important. My question is this: how do we effectively, because actually the answer to this question is something that will really matters to us. I mean, to me, to my organization as well, because that's exactly what we do. How do we effectively train these executors? I mean, the educators rather, to effectively carry out climate education in these schools in Africa and also around the world?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very important question, and I think it's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but there is a common denominator that. Firstly, I'll build on what Dr. Ash said. You see, the reality is that sometimes we think that climate action solutions are some complicated solutions that must come from elsewhere. Some of these solutions are being applied by our mothers in communities and in villages who have never been to a formal school, who have never been through formal education. What the point I'm trying to bring up here, what I'm trying to say is we must build on what works, regardless of level and regardless of how it's been devised. That's where indigenous knowledge comes in, because we're talking about actions that sometimes have been ignored. And therefore, to be able to ensure that climate literacy or climate education become part of the central stage of transformational development, we must be able to build on what already exists and close the gaps. You cannot go to a village, for example, you go to my own village in Jingwin. My mother have never been to school, but we grew up seeing her using nature-based solutions in her farm, interspersing crop production and planting nitrogen, fixing crops. But she used to have bumper harvest. What am I trying to say? That knowledge that she got, there are also gaps. When we come in, we cannot go to reinvent the wheel and despise her knowledge just because we think that we've had formal education or we're bringing in a solution that is more superior, rather than coming in to identify the gap that she needs to fill to be able to expand her production and also add value to what she is producing to put more money in more pockets. And I said it yesterday, climate literacy should be about filling gaps and ensuring that socio-economic opportunities are created. That said, to be able to build a solid transformational movement, both from the bottom up and top down, we must leverage on our strengths and not on our weaknesses. When I say leverage on strengths, we must be able to listen to people and understand the challenges they face without necessarily having to assume that they do not know what climate change means just because they cannot understand the graph we have presented, or because they cannot understand that what we are presenting is precipitation or temperature. They must have been coping with this. So understand what they have done and the challenge they face, and build on that knowledge they have as you bring in a solution to close that gap. That means we need collective effort where everyone matters, regardless of level of education, regardless of creed, regardless of where he or she comes from. Everybody matters in the solution space. And therefore, to leverage on that and drive this transformational climate education, everybody must be seen as a stakeholder and also as part of the solution provider in this process. But lastly, the young people have a lot of role to play in this. We are having more educated people today than we had in the 60s and the 50s. But there is a problem that we must be able to discuss honestly. The level of selfishness today is too much, where whenever people have information and knowledge they do not want to share, they want to shine alone. That egoistic, individualistic tendencies will not help advance transformational development. What does that mean? We need to understand that where you will sit when you are old shows where you stood in youth. And it will not be how tall you were or how light skin or how big you were or small. It will be what you did. And that's called legacy that touched many people's lives. So part of the climate education is in making people know that you must go beyond the limits to do that which touches lives, right? Building on what exists, but not necessarily always thinking that you can do it alone. Because alone, we might not necessarily go that far, but together we can cover so many kilometers.
That's actually mind-blowing, to be honest. If you notice, guys, you understand that Dr. Richard is always keen about trying to find local solutions to our local problems and not trying to import solutions to sort our local problems. We have local problems. We have this old people in the olden days back in Africa. There is a way we check the time. We listen to the birds. We see the sun ray and all the stuff to determine the time or the season or the climate. What he's trying to say is that we cannot despise the tradition and what has been as solutions, what those methodologies that have been used in the past as solution. But I think there's technology, fine, but we can rebrand. We can look into them and still use them, because when we talk about climate education, every stakeholders, both the educated, the not educated, they are all involved. And that, I think that's exactly what Doctor is trying to say. And I would like to hear the view of Dr. Hash. I believe it's going to be slightly different about how we can achieve climate education through educating the climate educators, or the educators, so to say. Dr. Hash.
Sure, thank you, Shay. I just wanted to say that, I put in a comment in our chat here too, and I wanted to say, with the pop movement, we really live by this value of being a universal family, and I think this is a very key part of being able to achieve what we're out together to achieve. And right now, while we talk of the issue of climate change and what we need to tackle is with respect to the climate and the environment, we must understand that it's got many different faces. It's got the face of the farmer in a village in Africa that is not receiving the rain that is necessary to be able to grow the crop to feed the family and the community. It's about those that are washed away with hurricanes and floods and forest fires and extreme weather events that are having to leave home or evacuated, that are citizenless and stateless now because they're not able to live where they belong. So I just want to say that, there is a human face to this issue. And I think it's really, really important to understand behind all of that, we're talking about people. And therefore coming together, bringing hearts, minds, and souls is together, and coming together in a manner that we truly love and care for each other in a way that's genuine is critical. you know, one of the biggest departures in our values that has brought about a lot of these issues, which are all symptomatic of the issue at hand, is that we have moved away from fundamental basic human values. And I'm going to say that, you know, coming together as a global family and really treating each other as such is a key part of this. The other thing, I'm going to address your question more specifically in terms of the need to educate and how to go about doing that. One of the key things, Priyanka, and you know, everybody else, that I'd like to share with you is that while this whole fundamental value of a universal family and being a collective is key to moving in the right direction, because like Mahatma Gandhi said that, you know, if speed is irrelevant if you're moving in the wrong direction, right? So what I'm going to say to you is that at the end of the day, ownership by communities, whether it's us here together right now, or you know, a community in Lagos or Abuja, or you know, elsewhere in Africa, India, Latin America, doesn't matter, is the participatory approach. You know, we cannot assume that we can go into a place and educate people on the basis of certain notions we have, which are a departure from the fundamental values, context, and living conditions of the people we are talking about. And therefore being participatory, which is allowing people to have ownership over the solutions and critically thinking. There's the difference between feeding a man a fish and teaching him how to fish. You know, if you really want to make sustainable change, you have to have participatory approaches. And yes, it might be the longer road to take, but it'll take you farther. And it goes back to the famous saying, which is that together we will go far. Because as long as you're able to engage and engage meaningfully the communities that we are trying to educate and have their participation in finding those solutions, you will have ownership in terms of solutions as well. And I'm going to give you an example, which might be a slight departure, but I want you to absorb what I'm trying to say because I think it's key. And that is, you know, there's an example of this very important sanitation intervention, and some of you might have heard of it, which was conducted in Afghanistan. And they put a lot of money into building beautiful toilets for families in their homes. Okay. And these toilets were built and they thought they solved all the problems of the world. You know, sanitation was not going to be an issue. People would not be defecating outside, all that. But when their team went back, they found that the women in the houses had broken down all the toilets. And so this whole team asked them that, you know, why did you do this? Because we spent so much money and so much effort putting these toilets together. And they said, well, you didn't talk to us when you did this. And if you had, you would have understood that the only time in the day we are allowed to go out and socialize is when we go out to defecate or whatever, to relieve themselves. And by taking away that and building these toilets, which seemed like the right thing to do from the development standpoint, they'd actually taken away a very fundamental thing. And so what I'm trying to say is that it could be as simple as that, but it's not so simple. And therefore, working with communities and creating their engagement and their participation in finding solutions that are locally applicable is key. And the only other thing I'm going to say to you is that use local knowledge, use science, and use tools that are locally applicable.
I think we've lost you there, Dr. Ash. We wait for Dr. Ash to come back, but yes, you're back, Dr. Ash. Sorry,
I think we lost him.
We lost you there for a minute, Dr. Ash.
Okay, I was just saying at the end that for any meaningful education to happen, it has to be local, it has to engage communities, and it has to have the voices of communities for it to be participatory and to be locally owned. And again, I'm going to just say one last thing, which was in response to what Dr. Richard said, which is that, you know, we have deviated in our values and we've become individualistic. I'm going to say one thing to all of you, that you may aspire to have your name on the most fancy business card in the world, but that business card will quickly replace your name for another name without thinking twice. It is who you are that matters, and what you leave people feeling and what you leave as a print over here, that matters. So I'm just going to say that whatever you do, do true to your heart and do true to the people you're working with. And we can only do it if we're together. Thank you.
Wow. That's a very touching one. And that goes to every young people here. Because to be honest with you, I can remember last year's Health Day when Dr. Richard said something very strong like this, that many young people pull themselves down, all because they just want that recognition. They just want to have the accolades. They don't want to come together to do anything together and stuff like that. It is so common amongst youth because we want our names to be there. We want to shine alone. And that way we are reducing and we are slowing down progress. You know, things that we could actually collaborate to do. We are trying to break ourselves and all that. So I think this is a message for me. That's the most touching part of everything you're talking about. When we are doing anything called volunteerism, when we are doing anything about this society development projects and the likes, we need to have the interest of the community at heart. It has to be genuine. It doesn't have to be like we are doing it just because we want the world to know that we are doing something. Are we truly helping them genuinely, or we are just doing it so that people will recognize our work or something? I think this is the biggest part of what you said and what Dr. Richard just said, that young people should have the true heart, to have the love in their hearts whenever they are doing anything to their community. And virtually, this is exactly what brings greatness in the real sense and fulfillment at the end. Thank you so much, Dr. Harsh. Thank you, Dr. Richard. This is the mind-blowing section here.
It's an unforgettable session, and I think everyone has so much to take away, some things that we can personally imbibe with what we do, relate with the communities we work in. Just want to thank you once again, Dr. Richard. I know you had to leave in 45 minutes, so I will not hold you back.
Actually, the good news is my boss has just told me we have the meeting in an hour's time, so he could see me typing.
Okay,
so that's good news. So I am around for the next 1 hour.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richard.
Thank you so much
to us, and thank you so much, Dr. Ash, as well. And we would have opened the floor for questions, but we are a little over time, and we will be starting the next session in another 10 minutes. Before which we had a short presentation from Shay's end. So we would love for everyone to, since Dr. Richard and Dr. Ash are around, please put in your questions in the chat, and I'm sure they can respond to you in the chat. There's a great time to engage with two such wonderful experts and to say things that you have in your mind. So please don't hesitate and share your questions. And thank you so much once again, Dr. Ash and Dr. Richard, for the greatest way to kickstart 51st Earth Day and the Earth Day webinar. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and honor. Thank you, Dr. Richard, Shay, Ola, Priyanka, and the entire family.
I appreciate, sir.
Thank you so much. So with that, we will head towards the next short session, rather presentation. So the Earth Day webinar is being organized by the Future Savers Initiative, Eris Foundation, the POP Movement, and Earth Day Africa. And all of these four organizations are strongly committed to advancing climate literacy within their regions, countries, and the globe. And for the next session, we were hoping to have one of these partnering organizations, which is the Future Savers Initiative, to share a little bit about what they do and their initiative through their climate club. So I hand it over to Shay to take it over.
All right. I want to say thank you to everybody, because it's a big privilege to have amazing young people around the world, amazing mentors around the world. I'm so happy. It's a privilege for our organization here in Nigeria doing what we are doing. It's a privilege to serve the community, to serve people, and it's a privilege to bring people together. This is the second time we are doing something like this. Last year was also massive. You know, we had Dr. Richard, who has always been our supporter, and I want to say thank you to, you know, the likes of Dr. Haj, Dr. Nomas. Can you imagine someone waking up this early just to join from Mexico? It means a lot to us. And it will be an opportunity to also share what we are doing in Nigeria, you know, to everybody here. Actually, when we started the organization, the thing that came to our mind was, you know, educating people. Because I must be clear, when you want to solve a problem, you need to look at the questions you know that people are asking, I mean, you want to bring a solution. You need to look at the basic problem of the solution. Climate change is a problem globally, but then what is the cause, and do people really know about it? And in Africa, I'm telling you, we are still far behind about the knowledge of climate change, and that's a fact. So in Nigeria, we thought of, okay, people don't really know much about this problem. What can we do? We need to educate. That is why climate education is like the focal point of our organization, Future Savers here. So what we believe that if we want to deliver climate justice, we need to educate young people, right? And then we focus on these young people. I just want to share two projects to you. Majorly, we have been to over 100 schools. In fact, if I'm not exaggerating, it's going to be more than that, where we go with our volunteers to teach them about climate education, where we also engage the teachers. The picture that is on the slide at the moment is in a special school in Nigeria, the School of the Deaf. Feel they are the less privileged young people. These kids, they cannot hear, they cannot speak. They are deaf, but we believe that everybody is affected by climate change. How can we communicate with them? So we go to the school, we engage their teachers, because they are the ones who are going to interpret. So if you check that some of these pictures, we were there to plant trees. We were there also to teach them about climate change. And we realized from their communication that many of them understand that the climate is changing. They made us to understand that the climate is changing, and some of the fruits that they used to, you know, see, they are not getting those fruits anymore. Some of them aspire to have farms. Some of them love some certain fruits and they are not getting them. Then we went to the school. We created a climate club in that school, because any school that we go to, our focus is creating a climate club where these young people will take charge of those clubs, where they are going to take control, and they will be able to teach themselves. You know, they will be able to teach themselves. They will be able to learn, and then they will be able to know some fruits, some vegetables, and also have a community garden in their school. So the purpose is when we create this club and they have a garden, they can sell some of these vegetables, some of these fruits, you know, to fund the clubs, and also to buy some water cans. They can also buy this waste baskets, yes, in their school. So these are the things that we do here in Nigeria. But then we believe that all these young people, they have a lighter heart and a beautiful heart, a receptive heart to accept some of our messages, right? And I think many educators around the world, they feel climate change is a scary news for young people to accept. They feel you don't have to tell them the truth. You don't have to tell them that way. But I think that's the best way. It's going to scare them now, but it's better they know the truth. The truth is never going to be sweet. The older generation, created this problem. We created this menace. Why do we want to hide the truth from them so that they have to suffer for a future that they are not actually prepared for? So what we do is telling them the truth the way it is, in the language that we understand, and at the same time, for them to be able to act, because that's the most important thing. Telling them that these are the solutions to this particular problem, and this is how you're going to act, and then you can become a climate actor. Now, that is the first project I'd like to share with you. The second project, which is even it's a mind-blowing project for us. During the pandemic, we couldn't reach out to these schools because of the lockdown. And then we thought about it, that how can we reach out to our children? How can we, but they are at home. So our organization thought of something. I don't know if Thompson can share that slide from the pollination project. Yes. So during the pandemic, we couldn't go to the schools to teach them. We couldn't. So we thought of it that, okay, what can we do? Then the project is the pollination project. And then our organization got a support from pollination project in the United States, about $1,000 to support this project. And we engaged the teachers. So what we do is that most of these schools, they are open actually. I mean, but the students are not there. You will see their principals or their headmasters or whatever it is. You will see them there, but unfortunately you can't find the students. So we went to these schools in about 5 states of Nigeria, and then we picked about 10 schools. And then our target was to educate or to connect or to reach out to about 250 students or pupils in these primary schools. So we had an agreement, we signed an agreement with the school teachers, and we nominated 5 educators. So we created a WhatsApp group to educate them about climate change. We taught them about tree planting. We taught them about how to start a nursery, and so on and so forth. So we thought we gave them recharge card also to mail calls to the parents of these students. So they called the parent, they told them about our organization, we want to do, and then we gave them a task to plant minimum of 5 different fruit seedlings at home. They could plant it in a plastic bottle or in a container, in a waste container, in their homes. And then we were monitoring the progress. So their teachers, who are the educators that we have in our WhatsApp group, they are the intermediaries. They are the connectors. So they speak to the parents, and the parents speak to their children. They help them to pick these seeds. Many African homes, we take fruits every day, but we just throw those seedlings away, or those seeds away. So their teachers taught them and spoke to them how they can use waste plastics and any waste container to plant these seedlings. It was mind-blowing because most of these young people, they are just roaming around. They are not doing anything at home during the pandemic. And then we taught them the sense of responsibility, sense of patience, how to, to plant seedling. Most of them don't even know how to plant any seedling. And I must tell you, the result was amazing. We were able to plant over 1,250 seedlings during the pandemic, even without having contact or physical contact with these young people. And that goes back to what Dr. Richard and Dr. Hash said, that if you give them that sense of responsibility, they can do these things as if it's theirs. We are not making it look like, oh, this is our organization, come and plant tree, come and do this and not. No, these kids took responsibility. And you can imagine what happened during the pandemic. They planted from day one. Some of these seedlings took about 2 weeks, some 3 weeks to germinate. So some of them were worried. They communicated back to their teachers that, oh, our seedlings are not germinating. What is happening? Oh, my orange is not germinating. What is happening? And we had to tell them that there's a particular period for every seed to germinate. That taught them patience. That taught them resilience. that taught them that in life, before you get anything, before anything comes out, you need to, you need to be patient, you need to wait. And when the school resumed, it was amazing. They came to the school with their seedlings. Some of them gave it to their parents to plant in their compounds. Some planted in their schools and stuff like that. And we were able to educate a lot of young people. And automatically, those kids started their climate clubs, and they were able to teach their other colleagues who did, which did not benefit during the during the pandemic. And also we were able to also educate these teachers. And at the same time, they were able to know much about climate change. So this is those are just the 2 projects I want to share out of so many projects that we're able to do. And lastly, during the pandemic, it was so difficult. So what our organization did was also to give foodstuffs, like foodstuffs for the educators, for them to, have time for themselves and take care of their family. So this is just what I want to share with you, and I'm so happy and I'm privileged to share this with you guys. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Thank
Good
you
job.
so much. Thank you so much, Shay. That was so inspiring, and thank you for sharing all that you've been doing. And we would love for people, if they're interested in engaging with Future Savers, I think we will share the details in the chat. You can definitely reach out to them and engage with them. And they're doing such incredible work, so please do. And with that, we will move on to the next session for the day. Thank you so much once again, Shay. And I will hand it over to Fola and Shay to take over the next session.
Okay, the next section is Dr. Soja. Shay, please can you go ahead?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Okay,
everyone.
Soja.
I guess we're all in different time zones.
Yeah, it's good. But please allow me to introduce you, please.
Sure.
Thanks for coming on board. Yes, thank you. Our next speaker today is Soja Lahiri. And then Soja Lahiri, before I introduce you, there's a big family, there's a big Indian family today in this session, and then I'm sure you're going to connect after. So Soja is the founder and chairman of OPL Group of Companies in Mauritius, from financial services, freight, forwarding, EPC, contracting, manufacturing, distributor of FMCGs to renewable energy, Soja's career span has weathered many economic conditions in over 10 countries around the world to hold strong and perform against the odds presented. His latest achievement includes being listed as one of the 40 leaders under the age of 40 in the solar energy industry in India during the year 2019, and also nominated by Indian 500 Startup Award of the year 2019 for Silaris Energy Private Limited in India. Remains a known name in the renewable energy circuit in India, whose opinion and accounts of achievements in the sector stands out. Soja holds the key position entrusted to channel the growth of the company and the group at large. I want to welcome Soja to this group, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Say. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everyone over here. I guess as I started, we're in different time zones. Thank you for your kind words, Say.
Yeah, thank
you. Well, being here with you all is a pleasure. I was happy to attend last year, and I am more than happy to be a part, even if on a very short time scale. Today, I'm very sorry I could not attend yesterday. We are closing accounts on various of our concerns and companies. and compliance in Mauritius is a very difficult thing. So I'm really sorry about that, but happy that I could get in today.
Thank you. So I would like to take the section, and the section is going to be asking questions and then, giving us your opinions and the answers to some of those questions for every one of us to learn today. Yeah. The section is it's all about the importance of mobilizing reforestation practices in local communities. And that is exactly what we are going to be talking about today. So the first question I would like to ask you is that, what are the economic, social, and environmental impacts of tree plantation?
Well, as we get into that question of yours, I would, let's put things down to a very small scale. The best way to explain the economic, social, and environmental aspects of plantation or tree plantation or afforestation can be taken by, let's say, if somebody, say a Mr. A, is planting one mango tree. Now, if we look at it, this one mango tree grows to bear fruit, which this person can eat. And in the long run, if this person depends on agriculture, this person can sell this fruit. Now, a mango tree grows to bear wide and large branches, which gives shade. Shades help in reducing the incumbent temperatures during a hot summer day. Water evaporating from the leaves during photosynthesis contributes to rainfall. Photosynthesis during the day gives you pure oxygen. Then when you're looking at trees like mango trees, you have grass and other vegetation growing underneath that tree. And what you're looking at is a tree like a mango tree lives for 100 to 200 years on an average. So all this, if you look at it with just one tree, you can reduce your cost of life. You can add to your income. You can increase your lifespan. In fact, you can have a better quality of life with the air you breathe. The rain that is caused by this one tree brings about growth of other vegetations and plantations around you. That's the social impact. And basically, just planting that one single mango tree can actually give you a good living atmosphere, a good So this is exactly what if you multiply now, just think that this one tree has such a huge impact on one person and the people around. What would the impact of this be if several trees like this are planted? And that can basically be summarized as the social, economic, and environmental impacts of afforestation. So if one tree is leading to so many advantages, several such trees and several different kinds of trees can really bring about a huge change.
Thank you. When we talk about tree planting in Africa, there are a few things that I personally, and many people I'm sure, have encountered. They are very funny. I'm telling you, they are funny because sometimes when you go to a neighborhood or a community that you want to plant trees, they will tell you that, how much are you paying us to plant trees? You are coming as a volunteer to plant trees for free. Like, you're not asking anything, but they are asking you for money. That how much are you going to pay us? Sometimes it's ridiculous, but I think there's a problem here in Africa, for example. I don't know about the other part of the world. But the question is, how can we really educate local communities about afforestation? Like, how can we really educate them to make them see this as something that they actually have to do themselves or to take as responsibility? How can we do this?
on this part, you have to go back to the reasons of deforestation. If you really look at it, deforestation happens more majorly because of urbanization. Of course, there are other factors to it. You have industrial growth, and people cut trees because they need firewood and XYZ. Of course, there's bush hunting in many places, because of which, again, there is deforestation. But the major reason is urbanization. And why do we have urbanization? Because of inflation. People need to earn more money. It is a general thought that if you move to the city, you're going to get paid better. Whether it happens or not is another cliche that we can talk about some other time. Now, with urbanization, I mean, this is the main reason why when you go to somebody or when you go to people around you, they'll ask you, how much are you going to pay me? Because for these people, what matters is the food on the table on that day, for that, and the days after. And that happens if this person actually cuts firewood. So you have to, one of the major ways or major reasons, major ways to mobilize or to educate local people about afforestation is actually, this is a way of mobilizing as well, and this is also a way of educating, that you have to incentivize afforestation in this. Okay. Wherein, of course, I'm not even getting into the depths of carbon credits and returns thereof. Let us just say that today you have future savers, and you have 10 other such communities coming together, NGOs coming together, going to the various governments, going to the various large industries, companies, corporates who have their CSR allocated. And you can actually form programs in which basically you don't pay them for one tree being planted, but for maintaining, let's say, 100 square meters of forest or plantations. And then it makes sense to them. Even if it's just a minuscule amount of money that they get for a year. Let's just say if you maintain 100 square meters of forest, you will get $500 incentive for the whole year. But it's still $500. They're getting something. And sometimes $500 is a large amount for a very small family. So these are basically some things that needs to be done. Sometimes education follows the factor of need. So once they realize that, then you can bring in other factors like what deforestation is actually doing. Let's say, for example, today we live in a concrete jungle. In a concrete jungle without forests, without any kind of plantations or very little plantation. And most concrete jungles have high rises in today's state. During the day, the temperatures inside a certain room or inside a concrete room is going to be pretty high. In fact, it is higher than the temperature outside. So you will have to spend money on buying a machine, either a fan or an air conditioner, switching it on electricity. Whereas if you have a forest or if you have trees around you and you're living in a smaller house, usually you can actually profit from having you can profit from lower temperatures. Like I mentioned for your previous question, that a large mango tree can give you shades, which reduces the temperatures. But there again, if you say this to somebody who needs food on the table every day, they're not going to accept this. So you have to basically follow that process wherein you're showing them their economic benefits first, and then the benefits that follow. The reduction in electricity bills, and let's say what is the actual advantage of having forests, climatic, these follow thereafter. And yes, of course, there's a huge section. The youth needs to be educated. We need to realize one thing. Like myself, like a lot of other people who have spent more than 35 years on this planet, looking at deforestation happening as it is. Like, in fact, you were mentioning that we have brought upon these climatic changes, these condemnable activities that go on these days. It's very true, but we have also lived with it for over the last 35, 40 years. For us right now, if you walk up to somebody who is not very conscious about environment and climate, who really does not care, they would say, and you actually cannot make them care anymore because they've already spent more than half of their life into this. However, if you take a fresh brain, somebody who's just out of school and college, and tell them, you know what, the moment you pluck a tree out, the moment you cut a tree out, you're going to lose these things. And tomorrow, your place may stop having rains. Tomorrow, you will have dramatic climatic changes. They will think, because their brain is still like, it's still like water. You can mold it into any shape you want to. And that is where actually, I guess, we need to begin, because a good section of the population, I'm not saying you need to write them off, but you will have to actually excuse them for the fact that they're too used to the status quo that is. And well, that's how it is. Otherwise, I mean, what you could also bring forth is the advantages of forests, the advantages of trees. Let's say, for example, a lot of forests provide fodder for cattle. There are lots of products which come out of forests, like, for example, you have, sorry, I need to read, you have acetic acid, acetone, methyl alcohol, creosote, which can be taken out of forests. Otherwise, you can have raw materials like raw materials for broom making, silk, lac, toy, leaf plates, which also come out of forests. So, I mean, for people looking in for self-reliant, or people who are into small-scale industries, these are the ways that you can educate them. So, yes, individuals, daily workers, people who have to sustain their lives on a daily basis, you will have to actually give them that economic incentive. You have to this is where innovation comes in. How do we innovate, and how do we make them believe that there is profit even in planting trees? And that's what needs to be created. That is a task that we can actually do at this point of time. Over to you, Saeed.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really overwhelming, to be honest, because it's not easy to convince local communities about tree planting. To be honest, I know the challenges we are facing here, but then the idea of tree planting is always good, but then we need to look at the economic benefits of tree planting. And then I remember when we met, you talked about carbon credit, and then I started making a lot of research and all that. And I would like you to share with every one of us if there are some specific benefits to afforestation that young people here can take on to their community and start planting trees with a different mindset. Because yesterday I remember Dr. Richard was talking about, we don't just need to be planting trees. If we are just planting trees, if you plant 1 million trees and 2 million trees were cut down, what is now the purpose of tree planting? What do you think maybe you can share with us specifically some of these advantages, not advantages, some benefits, so to say, or opportunities. Let me use the word opportunities. The opportunities in planting trees or afforestation. Can you just try to share some with us? I would really appreciate it.
The primary opportunity that you have with afforestation is, around the world, there are over 50,000 species of trees, shrubs, herbs, and forestry, of which around 4,500 are actually utilizable. As I mentioned, there are trees from which you can pull out methyl acetate and acetic acid, acetone, creosote. So for a lot of the youth who want to be self-reliant, for a lot of the youth who want to be productive, there needs to be research on the kind of trees who in their lifetimes, trees, herbs, and shrubs, which in their lifetimes have such productivities without actually harming them to that accord. When you plant this, first of all, yes, point one, you are stopping or you're working towards arresting the incumbent climate changes, the effects that we see, the negative effects. And second, you are working towards the betterment of the society. You are actually creating a self-reliant society, which can be a supplier of raw materials, or which can basically somebody can do something by themselves using those plants and trees. So this, you can say, is that one opportunity that we can actually look into when it comes to afforestation. Taking cue from Dr. Richard Munang's speech yesterday, of course, of what you've told me. I'm sorry, I wasn't there yesterday. We should not be planting anything and everything. It's actually very, very true, because we are living in a society, we are living at times, especially after the pandemic, where 85% of the world's population is unsure of what they're going to eat tomorrow. Whatever we act for, be it climate action, be it our own economic activities, be it business, be it anything for that matter, we have to consider the economic factor of it. I mean, what you mentioned, say, during one of your questions, I mean, in your previous question, that if you go to ask somebody to plant a tree, they ask you how much are you going to pay them? I mean, that is something that's something which should be put up in bold letters and kept in front of everyone. That is so exemplary. That brings forth so much, of how the situation is today. So, yes, if we're going for afforestation today, it has to be as per what the place, the person, and the times need. It has to be as per what something supports. And of course, you have to actually analyze which works where. You cannot go ahead and plant trees which do not work in a certain topography and expect it to bloom over there. So there needs to be a proper analysis that goes into all this altogether. Other than that, yes, there are other factors. As we all know, each large tree basically reduces carbon emission by 20 metric tons a year. So if that can be established, there are economic advantages like carbon credits. You can list your carbon credits through various exchanges, which are possible, but now you cannot directly go to exchanges. You have to go via brokers, via registered brokers in various markets, and there's a certain percentage that you're allowed. So that is one definite advantage that can happen. And of course, it cannot be done by anybody. It has to be done by a registered organization. Other than that, of course, you can also basically, there can be afforestation for various projects. Let's say, for example, we constantly have needs for timber, for bioenergy, for agroforestry. If we can do that in a controlled manner, almost all the times, then we can maintain that balance between consumption and of course not go ahead and do a lot of deforestation in that on that accord. So basically, first of all, we need to balance it out. I mean, we have to be absolutely balanced in the way that we go with our activities. We need to analyze what is needed, and of course, we also have to. I mean, we need to involve various organizations, financial institutions into the process, wherein we can actually take full advantage of the opportunities here.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Soja, for your insightful, presentation. When we talk about opportunities such as the common credit, it's a lot of technicalities involved. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's not something just anybody can jump into and say, I want to start earning common credit from tree planting. I think it will require many of us who might be interested to do a lot of research work on it, and then, like you have said, putting the priority should be the community and how we can put food on their table, and how we can take them out of poverty, how they can be fed, whatever we are doing in these communities. The well-being of this community must be the top priority, because that's what matters to them. Of course, they know the climate is changing; they are being affected. But how are they going to be fed? That's the question they want to get answers for. And then every of our solutions must be intrinsically linked, to bringing solutions also to these communities, especially economically. So I think that's a fantastic section from you, and I want to say thank you for your time. And I know maybe one or two people might want to ask you questions. This is a time for us to ask Soja some questions about his presentation. Okay, Dr. Richard is raising his hand. Okay, so
just
over to you,
quick
Dr.
reminder, Dr.
Okay.
Richard, sorry, just before your comment, we have 5 minutes before the next session, so I request to stay within the time limit if possible. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard.
Yeah, thank you very much, Soja. Nice to see you again, and thanks for the amazing presentation. That was really excellent, and I think you've touched most of the aspects that I wanted to ask some questions on. But what I just wanted to highlight is you've mentioned the aspects sometimes where people think you brought this up and then you elaborated on it, where people want things to be done for them, and if they are to do it, then if there's no money, they will not do it. That's dependency mentality, which is not just about afforestation. On anything to be done by a person, if someone doesn't give them that, they will not do it. And that's a mindset issue. So what I wanted to ask you is this: to what extent do you think focusing on afforestation without necessarily also focusing on other aspects can be a solution that is sustainable? And I say this because, as I said yesterday, that if you plant 5 million trees and cut down 10 million, then it doesn't really mean anything. So the point I'm bringing here, not necessarily a question, is we must diversify as we encourage people to plant trees so that they can focus on other alternatives, and that will then drive their livelihoods and spur more socioeconomic mobility. The other aspect, not necessarily a question, is that sometimes the narrative, I think the narrative when it comes to afforestation is the biggest problem, because if we don't plant trees, then we are going to suffer. But not focusing, that's true, but not focusing in not planting trees for a living, but planting trees for a business. Planting trees for a business is what will sell to the people, because people, they don't really care much about the language of doing things for social endeavor. They want to hear, oh, if I plant, for example, fruit trees, oh, I am going to, in about the end of the year start making money because I can harvest the fruits and sell. They will plant, they love that kind of language. And that's why my language about climate action, anything we do, we must do it through the lens of an enterprise, not a social endeavor. So, and you mentioned something which I just thought I should bring it up, which is if you take woodlots, which pretty much is an afforestation way of doing things that is being done in communities. We did some work in Tanzania where people who had woodlots were using that as security in cooperatives to be able to take loans. This is a very beautiful analogy that can be brought up. Yes, I know we talk about carbon trading as if it's a simple thing. It's a very difficult thing. And Africa is on the supply side, not on the demand side. And so they don't really, that's why they don't even really benefit on it. But they will hardly benefit, but the entire globe will benefit. And that's something at the global level that is happening. But what I'm saying is, however, we'll start looking at the local level, that if you have your woodlots, that becomes a security or a collateral for you that if you don't even have money, you can use that in local cooperatives to be able to secure a loan to do something, maybe an agricultural activity that will give you more money. So we'll start looking at afforestation through the lens of de-risking the whole value chain of activities that people are engaged in to be able to access financing, which then can then be able to now make people start seeing afforestation as an opportunity for them to build their way to access financing. I will stop there. There are other things, but because of time, I will. But that was a brilliant presentation.
I think Soja has dropped out of the call. Oh, he's back. Okay.
Dr. Richard, I missed the last of what you said. I guess I was, where I lost you was using logs as a collateral. And then, yeah.
Oh, you didn't get that part?
I lost you there. That's the last what I heard.
And that was the most important part. Anyway, because of time. Yeah, what I was saying is that the afforestation narrative needs to be tailored in such a way that it fits into the good fortunes of people. Because what I was trying to say is that if we are now looking at it from the perspective, you planting trees, because people have that mindset, I always say the plant trees is the sort of punishment. It's a terrible mindset I've never understood. So they're planting it for their own benefit, and they're planting it for their business. And in this case, we start to look at innovative ways in which if you plant woodlots, you plant trees, they can actually be used as collaterals to take loans in financial institutions. And in this way, local cooperatives. And we have done this in Tanzania and it worked excellently, but it was never taken up. But actually, when you spoke about this today, I thought I should bring this up because that is a very good way. And I think Say and Future Safe should take this up. People are planting trees for business, and those trees they planted are actually assets that they can take and secure loans to do other businesses. You will see magic working with this if you try it.
Exactly. When you attach an economic perspective to it, and when you attach that financial perspective to it, the whole game changes altogether. What it does is it gives them that incentive to do something more, because the more they do, the more they get. And in a way, it's good. In a way, this can actually help the afforestation drive if you can give them that. But yes, I mean, it's sad that it's come down to this.
And it's going to get worse.
That's the reality. Thank you so much for your contributions. We'd like Priyanka to take charge now.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you, Soja. Thank you, Dr. Richard, for this absolutely amazing session. Reforestation is such a critical topic and very little understanding most of us have about it. And this session, I think, has thrown the right amount of light in all aspects of it. And thank you, Dr. Richard, for the additional comment and discussion. And we hope that the session has been helpful for you. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave it in the chat. The experts are around, so I'm sure they would be willing to answer. And with that, I think we'll move to the next session for the day. For the next session, we have two very interesting experts joining us. So our ocean plays a very critical role in moderating climate change, and many of us may be living far away from the coast, but each of us directly or indirectly have an impact on the ocean through our everyday action. So our next session is going to focus on understanding the interlinkages between our ocean health, climate change, and the importance of ocean literacy. I would like to introduce the two speakers and panelists for the day. Firstly, we have Steph joining us. Steph is the founder of Seas of Change. Seas of Change was founded in 2014 by Steph when she was 10 years old, with a focus on raising funds and awareness of dugongs, sea turtles, plastic pollution, and climate change. Seas of Change also has an emphasis on the power of youth to make a tangible change. To support this, Steph runs programs within schools and at events to educate students on a variety of environmental issues, inspiring them to take action and providing students with mentoring opportunities to ensure their action plan is successful. Seas of Change continues to run fundraisers and support other organizations in their work. Over the past 6 years, Steph has had several incredible experiences within the environmental space. She has been an Ocean Youth Ambassador since 2017, where she volunteers at Sydney Sea Life Aquarium, helps to facilitate Ocean Youth workshops and run other youth events at the aquarium. Recently, Steph was named the 2021 Northern Beaches Young Citizen of the Year at the Australia Day Awards and awarded the 2021 Nanga Mai Award for Student Leadership. Thank you so much, Steph, for joining us.
My pleasure.
And our second panelist for the day, Bassey John is the Lagos State President of Global Environmental and Climate Conservation Initiative, Nigeria. He's an SDGs advocate. During his service year as CORPS member, he executed a personal project which attracted Governor Honor Award and prospect of Presidential Award. His experience spans from environmental, business development, capacity building, advocacy, as well as coaching course member on personal project execution. Currently, he's working with the Nigeria Police Force. John has experience in innovation projects that build leadership, increase awareness for youth to capitalize Africans, development, and social challenges. Bassey John is a famed promoter of global cooperation with years of experience in youth engagement and social programs for development, human rights, peace, and nonviolence. He has a strong focus on youth empowerment and gender equality. He's also a member of International Organization of United Nations. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us as well. Sir, I think you're on mute. We're not able to hear you. I hope we are audible now. So I would like to welcome Steph and Bassey John for joining us for this session on understanding the importance of ocean and its relation to climate change and the importance of ocean literacy. And with that, I would like to have this, we'll follow a panel discussion format where I'll be putting in some questions forward and we can take it forward from there. So the first question that I would like to open to the both of you, and this is a question that's so important to understand because a lot of us don't live very close to the ocean or don't see the impact of ocean on the environment and what we do. So I just want to understand, what do you think is the impact of ocean health on climate change? And maybe we can begin with John to start the answer. I think we have lost. Steph, maybe you want to take over while we have him connect back.
Sure. So I'm really lucky that I get to live near the ocean. I live in Australia, right on the beach. And I think it's really important to understand how the ocean and climate change interconnects because like majority of our Earth is ocean. So hi, Dr. Ash. Our oceans are really important in trapping carbon dioxide and great for greenhouse gases to actually like help delay climate change. However, we're producing so much that the oceans can no longer, they're not able to trap as much as we actually would like. And we're seeing sea levels rise because of this, but also we're seeing a lot of coral reefs dying, and about 25% of fish species rely on coral reefs as like a breeding ground to live, to find their homes, their food. So we're seeing all of these really valuable ecosystems destroyed, the oceans becoming more acidic, all of these like very, very great effects on the oceans because of climate change.
And that's exactly what you said. You're lucky to live right next to the ocean, so you are able to see what is happening. But a lot of us don't have an understanding of it. So thank you for that insight. And I think John is back. So would you like to? Are we audible to you? I hope he can join us very soon, but I will, so if you can hear us, please do let us know. Are we audible?
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much, finally.
Oh, okay. I want to use this opportunity to appreciate everybody, the organizer of this great event. The first question was, what is the impact of ocean health on climate change? Now, let's take the background of the word ocean. The ocean is an integral part of the Earth system, and it has suffered greatly because of our escalating use of fossil fuel. Now, what are the impact of this ocean on our health? Every second breath that we're taking comes from ocean ecosystem. Is very vital and is very critical to our daily lives. Changeably link that role in mitigating climate change by serving as a major heat and carbon sink. Two, we see the ocean also bears the bond of climate change.
My apologies, sir, but I think we are having a slight issue hearing you. I'm sorry, sir, we're not able to hear you. If there's some way you can reconnect. Our apologies, we are not able to hear you.
Okay, by serving as a major heat, and the ocean, like we see. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So would you like to maybe switch off your video? That would help you.
Can you?
Okay, we will just wait for him to connect back. And I think meanwhile we'll move on to the next question. So Steph, you have done a lot of work in terms of course, education is one front that you've worked very closely with, but you've also tried to understand how our actions are affecting the sea turtles and a lot of the sea animals that live in the coast of where you are. So the one thing we want to ask you was, you must have seen the front-hand effect of plastic pollution on the ocean. So what exactly is the impact? We are very casual in our plastic consumption. The way we go about our daily life is very casual. So what exactly is the effect of it on the marine animals, and something that we are not able to see? What is the picture that you can paint for us that can help us understand that?
Yeah, for sure. So last year I was lucky enough to go visit a sea turtle rescue up the coast. And one of the beautiful, beautiful sea turtles, she was a mature age sea turtle, so beautiful. She excreted like 3 meters of string from a balloon plus the balloon. Some of the other turtles had excreted little bits of plastic, some had excreted plastic bags, and about half of these turtles unfortunately passed away due to their plastic consumption. So it's it's really greatly affecting our marine life at the moment. It's just one example. Seabirds are being affected. It's touching around their feet, around their necks, and incapacitating animals. And we're seeing photos of all these animals now making their homes out of plastic. Some making their homes out of plastic. And it's just so terrible that all these animals, like, we've taken away all their habitat, and now they're making homes out of plastic. But yeah, I think you walk down the beach now and it's just lots of plastic everywhere. You go swimming, you'll definitely find plastic in the ocean. There's going to be more plastic than fish in the ocean very, very soon if we don't do anything about it. And it's really unfortunate to see all of that destruction.
Yeah, and we absolutely agree. I think seeing that sort of thing firsthand really would hit you hard and make you realize that we are being so irresponsible in the way we are going by our daily lives. But for most of us, for me personally as well, I live in a city where I don't know what my impact is. And that makes it so much easier for me to just go about my daily life and not think about what my actions are doing. So thank you, Steph, for shedding that light on that aspect. And if Bassey John, so if you're back, then we would love to hear your thoughts as well.
On the first question, right? The first question you asked was, what is the impact of ocean health on climate change? Okay, like I said, we want to start from the background of the ocean, the relationship between ocean health and climate change. And I said the ocean is an integral part of the Earth system, and it has suffered greatly because of our escalating
I'm feeling terrible that this is happening. So would you want to switch off your camera in case, if that's helpful, and just have the audio on? I'm not sure if he's around.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Like I was saying, I said the ocean health on climate change play a vital role. Every second breath that we take in comes from the ocean. So keeping the ocean ecosystem healthy is critical to our daily lives. Secondly, the ocean and climate change are interchangeably linked. There's a conjunctivity, there's a link between the ocean and the climate change. The ocean play a fundamental role in mitigating climate change by serving as a major heat and carbon sink. Secondly, the ocean also bear the brunt of climate change as evidenced by changes in temperature, current, and sea level rise, all of which affect the health of marine species, seashore, and deep ocean ecosystem. So these are the impact of the ocean health on climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And I completely agree. It's so interlinked, and we fail to realize how interlinked it is to the climate and the world around us. And that's the whole world, right? I mean, we fail to realize how every aspect of this nature is interlinked with one another. So thank you for sharing that. And going by the theme of this year's today, we are focusing on the importance of climate literacy and education. And something that's very vital in the realm of climate literacy is ocean literacy. And once again, the whole concept of, if you are living far away, do we need to have that much knowledge about the ocean, or also not having the enough knowledge leads to us not treating the oceans right. So two things that I wanted to ask, and I can open this to both of y'all. One is, what are some effective ways in which we can make ocean literacy a part of learning and education? And Steph, especially since you do so many workshops and education programs in your organization, what are some ways in which you can make it effective? And additionally, how can you also now start having ocean literacy as a part of mainstream school learning? Where already the focus on climate literacy is limited, and then on top of it, if you want to add ocean literacy as a subject matter into that, climate literacy umbrella, how can we do that? And what are some ways in which we can push for schools to take that up as well? So Steph, maybe I can have you start on that.
Yeah, so I'm 17, I run a charity, and I can't vote. I'm not of age, and I've been running this for 6 years. So my favorite part of education is running education. And I read a quote this morning, and it was, environmental education is just as important as action. If we do not have ocean literacy, if we cannot understand the problems, we cannot spark solutions. If we don't, I've met so many people who were like, I didn't know that plastic was a problem. I didn't know that there was anything happening to the earth. I didn't understand climate change. Therefore, they didn't do anything about it. But as soon as they learned something, as soon as they understood what the problem was, that sparked action. They were motivated to make a change, and their change was so effective. And that's why I truly believe that ocean literacy is so, so important, because we can't effectively create change if we don't actually know what that problem is. And if we're uneducated, we're not actually going to want to make the change because we don't know it is a problem. So as much as it's sometimes challenging to educate yourselves, you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to be okay with feeling uncomfortable, because some things will challenge your values, challenge your beliefs. It's really important to educate yourselves and continue being that lifelong student as new papers and new studies come out all the time. So how we introduce ocean literacy into schools is that we offer free programs to all schools in Sydney that is like tailored to each school, to a class group, to an assembly, to a year group, and it's all integrated within the syllabus. So and this is all, teachers will reach out with like, hey, we're studying this topic, it's sort of related, can you come do this? So I think offering those free workshops are really helpful for getting children involved. And I think targeting primary school children is really important. I know, at least for me, in high school, I definitely studied a lot of stuff about climate change and the oceans and social justice in geography. That was in high school, and you lose a lot of interest from students in high school. Primary school is the best time to target those students because they're so interested and they're so open and they really, really want to help. But you just need to provide them with the tools and the education. So although the syllabuses are starting to introduce new stuff, at least in Australia, and they have project-based learning and challenge-based learning where the students are able to investigate their own passions, I think it would be really, really important to continue to integrate ocean literacy into geography projects.
Yeah, right, absolutely. I absolutely agree that targeting at a young age would be very interesting, and also a great way to bring that mindset and behavioral change that we aim for. It's also important that if not through schools, if not through the mainstream, at least through non-stream ways, such as the way your organization is doing it. And I think a lot of organizations across the world are doing it. That's a great way to channel and reach out to children and try to bring in ocean literacy. So thank you for that. And if Sir has his net, John, sir, if you have your connection available, we would like to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Can you come again with the question?
So we want to understand the importance of ocean literacy and how we can make it a part of school learning and try and get it to the children at a very young age so that they learn more about how they can do their bit for the ocean.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Are you with me? Okay,
yes, we can hear you.
How important is to have ocean literacy as a part of our school curriculum? Now, defining a good curriculum is one thing, but achieving may require so many resources. One thing is to have a curriculum. Another thing is to achieve the curriculum, which is the target. So in achieving it, we need the resources. Now, what are the importance? Number one, it's development in enhancing teaching and learning. When you embed or collaborate ocean literacy in our curriculum, either in primary school, secondary school, tertiary institution, it causes development in enhancing teaching and learning. It will make both the teacher and the student to learn faster. And then it makes learning easy. Number two, common goal. When you have a curriculum, it's like a student going to school without no syllable. Syllable is like the framework of the term. So when you have your syllable and the curriculum, it will give you the platform for you to work with one goal. That means at the end of the time, either the year, you will be able to achieve the purpose of bringing such idea in existence. Number three, we have progress. Number four, it state and organize it paths to serve as a great map. It's like a compass. It's like a road map. So on my list here, number one, development in enhancing teaching and learning. It makes teaching and learning so easy and very simple, both to the teacher and the student. Number two, common goal. It will help you for you to achieve your goal while you are bringing those ocean literacy in existence. Number three, we see progress. And then finally, we see a steady, organized path. It serves as a map. It serves as a Google map for the student to be able to follow. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think some very important points that were put forward. And one thing that I really agree is the idea of a solid curriculum or a syllabus. And somewhere I think that's very important, especially when you want to approach schools to take up ocean literacy or climate literacy, is to offer them that solid toolkit that this is what you need to adopt and we are here to support you. And a lot of times I think schools hesitate also because they don't feel like, in addition to the burden that they have of, teaching the regular subjects, they are very hesitant to take up something new that they may not be fully aware of. So that's something I completely agree. And also the idea of making this into a collective action and pushing for things like even composting or encouraging students to do things that are more practical and hands-on would also encourage them to take up climate action. And that's something that's so important and valid. So thank you so for adding that. And as we move towards the end of the session, I had a question, which is, we know that the state of our ocean is really bad at this moment, and there is no better way to put it, that there's no way to cover what's happening right now. So what are some of the immediate actions we can take? Ocean literacy is, of course, something that needs to be ongoing and continuous, but what are some of the immediate actions we can take, say on an individual level, also on a group level as youth leaders as well? What are some of the immediate actions that we can take to ensure that we start reducing or at least slightly shift or turn around the situation that our oceans are going through today? So Steph, maybe you can begin if you're Thompson, if I'm sorry, you're presenting the screen. Could you just
Sure. So I think a great action that we can, there we go. So some actions for us, I think, first of all, continue educating ourselves, educating our friends and our family and our acquaintances in a respectful manner, but also to reevaluate your life choices. What are your decisions that you're making on a daily basis? Because individual action truly does matter. Like, are you buying cups of coffee every day? Are you buying plastic bottles every day? Like the top 4 plastic waste, it's probably been drilled into you 100 times. But straws, plastic bottles, coffee cups, and plastic bags are so bad. They're the top 4 plastic polluters for single use, and they desperately need to be removed. So if you can, like, just bring a drink bottle with you, bring a Kit Kat, bring a reusable bag. You probably don't need a straw, or if you do need a straw, have a reusable one. All of those really basic things, but it's just getting into the habit of reevaluating our decisions and bringing those objects with us, and continuing to recycle, but not just relying on recycling. I know a lot of people who wish cycle, they like to say, oh, it's all fine, it can be recycled. Not everything gets recycled that goes in the recycling. Actually, a very small proportion of what goes into recycling is recycled, so to keep that in mind. But also, as you get older, I assume this is an older audience, but reevaluating our super and where we're investing our money and our electricity bills and all of that. And I'm not ready to worry about just yet. But for a lot of older people, that's, you know, entering adulthood, that's what I'm starting to look at. It's really important to see where we're investing our money, what politicians we are voting for, and also on a group level, you can join organizations. Everyone wants your help. You're not going to be turned away. And to start that change, start petitioning. Start at local level, unless you desperately need to go to state or federal level. Start at local level because that's where you'll see the most change. And just don't discount the power of your voice and your action, because you will be very surprised by how powerful one person can be.
And I think that was great. Some very important things that you said, and that we can start doing is, as young people, of course, change our daily actions, be conscious of even the one straw that we are thinking of using, you know, before we pick that straw, can we alternate it, or can we think of not using it, refusing, such an important aspect. And also the idea where you said that as we are older, look at where we are putting our money, what we are investing into, what we are supporting, can we support initiatives that are more sustainable? I think some great ideas there. And I would like to direct the same question to John sir as well. What are some of the immediate actions that we can take, which hopefully can turn around the situation of our ocean?
Okay. Although the question is so technical, but let me try my best. You said, what is the, oh, please, can you come again? Sorry. Come again, repeat the question.
What are some of the immediate actions we can take for our ocean and to ensure that we can reverse even slightly what is happening to our ocean today?
Okay. In every problem, there must be a solution. And that's why we are here. The reason why we're having all these programs, not just to stock ourselves with knowledge, but also to be impactful. When they transfer this knowledge to us, we should be able to transfer it to educators, to youth, and then to the world at large. So, undoubtedly, the biggest impact consumer can make is to reduce the use of single-use plastic, which contribute to a significant share to plastic pollution to the sea. Let me just quickly run through. There should be reduction in the consumption of all this ocean plastic, and also recycling, volunteering, and supporting campaign. So these are a little bit where I can come in. There should be a platform where people should avail themselves opportunity to, go out and create awareness, make a campaign by supporting, volunteering to group, and then recycling, and also reduce the rate of plastic. I think that should be a little contribution I'll add to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this incredible panel discussion. I think we have two very diverse panelists. Steph, who's just 17 years, but has done so much that I think a lot of us put together wouldn't be able to do. And of course, John, sir, who has had decades of experience, who's also here with us. So thank you for shedding light on both ends of the spectrum, where we look at a youth who is doing so much, and also such an experienced expert who is also doing so much. And it goes to show that age is just something that we don't have to focus on the youth. It's an intergenerational aspect that we need to look at. All of us need to come together. And our ocean is so vital to our planet and to monitoring climate change and to ensuring that our planet has a sustainable future. And I really hope from this session, people can take away some key aspects of what they can do. And at the same time, try to find organizations around you, try to find campaigns, try to find individuals who are doing action, support them, join them, and make it a mass movement, because this cannot be done alone. We all need to come together. And I'm happy we could have this panel discussion to highlight some of these important key points that we needed to discuss about our ocean. So thank you so much, Steph. I know it's late in the night and you've joined us, so thank you so much for taking the time out. And thank you, John, sir, as well, for this very insightful session.
Thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate it.
If anybody has any questions, please do mention it in the chat. I'm sure our experts will be around for a few minutes, so they can definitely add in points. And I would like to thank Sergio sir for all these comments that he's been sharing. Thank you so much, sir, for keeping the chat and the session engaging. With that, we will move on to the next session for the day. So once again, any questions, please do put it in the chat. We'd be happy to take it. Paula, I hand it over to you to take over the next session, if you're around. Paula, are you there? Okay, so I will not take further time. I'm not sure if Paula is available. So for the final session of the day, we are delving into a very crucial topic, which is understanding how to successfully raise funds and grants for promoting climate education projects. There's a question that we all at some point in our journey to promote climate advocacy and action have definitely come across. I too have personally come across it so many times. And to shed light on this, we are joined by two very important experts. Our first expert for today is Shaylee. She's a fellow at the Energy and Resources Institute, New Delhi. She's a multidisciplinary professional who has more than 16 years of experience in policy research, advocacy, and capacity building on sustainable development and climate change. She's a board member at the World Sustainable Development Forum and is an honorary mentor motivator at POC Movement. In the past, she has briefly worked with the World Bank in Washington, D.C. and Columbia University and NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York. Thank you so much, Shaylee, for joining us. Shelley, I think you're on mute.
Hi.
Hi, Shelley.
Yeah, let me just try to switch on my video. Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shelley, for joining us. Yeah. Our second speaker for today is Matt. Matt joined Earth Day Network in August 2019 as a manager of Earth Day Africa. He has a bachelor's degree in international relations and peace and justice studies from Gettysburg College. Matt served for 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Gambia, where he partnered with waste management entrepreneurs, developed environmental education campaigns, and worked at his community's local schools. Outside of Earth Day, Matt enjoys hiking, biking, and traveling. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us in the day 2 of our webinar, and thank you for joining us yesterday as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to wrap up the program.
Yes, it's such a crucial topic that you're looking at, a very important one that in a sense backs everything that all of us as individuals, organizations, groups aim to do and scale the projects that we're trying to work on. So the first question that I had is, and I want to open it to the both of you, is how important is funding for any organization, group, or individual who is working towards furthering their climate protection project? So if Shelley or Matt, whoever wants to go first, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for your project. I think that question that you asked was quite pertinent. And funding is, of course, very important. In a way, it is like a lifeline. But at the same time, I would also urge that before funding, what's more important to have is like clarity on what you want to do. So once you have that in place, especially in terms of what change are you, how do you see yourself as being the change in the type of change you want to see? Then I think, then it is a matter of working it out, identifying specific donors, funders, and opportunities. But I think before the funding, what is more important is to really have the concept. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And same question to you, Matt. How important is funding and raising money for the projects that we try to do for our climate?
Yeah, so funding is, huge. It's so important. And, like one thing I'll say is that if you look, at nonprofits and organizations, like, they're the ones that provide the actions. And then there's funders, there's foundations, and they do similar things. They're nonprofits as well. And their sole purpose here is to provide funding. That's their form of action. And funding is important because that's how you're able to work with these foundations, or these institutions or corporations that are able to make the projects that you do, even more impactful. Funding is, it's important because you're able to show, why your project is necessary. You're able to show like what problems you're able to solve. And you're able to assess, not your needs, but the needs of communities. You're also, able to identify, the public or the community. You're able to, serve. And I think, as you're looking for funding, it makes your work that much more impactful. It really shows that you have a program, you have goals, and there can be measurable outcomes, methodologies, and ways to like engage your staff in your work. So like funding is, in my opinion, that's how work gets done, especially with climate literacy, as that is a theme we're all talking about today. So
yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree that it's so important. And that's where I think knowing that it's so important is where I think, especially small even like an organization like mine, which is really small scale, that's where we tend to struggle as to understand how we can move forward and find those right opportunities for our organization. So with that, the second question that I would like to ask again to the both of you is, how can we get international and local grants to support the implementation of climate education in schools? And maybe Sherry can go first.
Yeah, hi. So yes, from my experience in terms of working, I'm more like a policy researcher, but also like from the institute where I come, and of course even pop movement, which I'm affiliated with as an honorary motivator mentor, is that like there are many ways actually to get funding. There is one example I'd like to give, and this is already given as a case study in WSDF website. One of the very emerging channels of funding is CSR. And sometimes like CSR funding is, especially if it is, in the location where the particular corporate entity is in operation, it is still easy to get. And this project I'm talking about is Project Nishtha by one of the youth, who was associated with POP, Suhani Giroti. So she had this beautiful idea about, promoting a circular economy, waste related project. And because in India, we are a very religious country, not like all of us, including me, are religious, but then still a large chunk of people are religious. And so there are like lots of flowers that are offered in the many temples that are scattered around in the city, and then all of that flower then kind of ends up mostly in rivers, and then of course that ends up in seas, and then so on and so forth. That kind of chain goes on. So now in this case, this youth colleague, Suhani, she was able to firstly identify the problem, identify the solution, because the model was that you collect the waste from these temples after they have offered, and instead of them ending up in a dump, and then to collect the waste, you needed like some resources to like a cyclist who would go and collect the waste, and then you needed like a small composting facility, and so you need the flowers to get composted, and then you bring them back to the temple gardens. So that way it's a circular economy. So again, like the way it was for her was going about this was, she had the concept in mind, which was very clear. She wanted to see a certain set of activities, flow, but of course the good thing is you also need to budget a certain amount for awareness. So for example, it took her a lot of time to convince the priests, and once the priests were on board and it was easy to convince them, then all this would be mobilized well. So she identified the various things that would require resources, including getting a person who would collect, a composting facility, then the compost being brought back to the temple gardens, some funding for awareness raising. And so she prepared like this concept, a budget, and approached this local CSR, it was, since it was so clear, she had little videos about the stakeholders showing interest in her concept and willingness to adopt. So it was very easy for her to kind of mobilize the funding for her project. I mean, this is just CSR. But again, once you have the project, once you have the stakeholder buy-in, identify people around that area. If it is a very local, specific project, or if it's a school education project, then it is easy. And especially for school education, there is like a lot of corporates are taking interest, but also governments. In case of education, even governments are a very important source of funding. So if you could just approach your local mayor, some of them have small budgets, they would help you, to help you support if you have a clear budget and activity plan.
Thank you, Sherry, for taking us through that example, it's very interesting because a lot of us work on similar sort of projects where we are very small scale and local run. And then one thing that you emphasize on is finding those local donors and local CSR who can relate with what you're trying to do, and in a sense also find a connection with the work that you're trying to take forward. So I think that's a great tip that you have shared with us. And Matt, I have the same question to you as well. What are some ways in which we can pull up international and local grants? So of course, Sherry shared the idea of how we can capitalize on local grants that may be available, but even internationally, if I am in India and I want somebody in the US to support something that I'm doing, what are some ways in I can try to pull them to do that, especially in terms of climate education projects, since that's the area that we are focusing on?
Yeah, I actually have a presentation I did have prepared for this, but I think I can just sort of cut through some of it and just kind of answer in real time here. So, I'll start off with this: is that the money is always out there. Like if there's a project, the money's there, and there are people that are willing to pay for things. They're willing, as I said before, these foundations and, these company sponsored, or corporate foundations, their sole purpose is to generate funds and to fund projects. And if you have, an organized proposal, if you really state the purpose, if you have a mission, if, there's, methods, and you give them a detailed overview of your goals, your objectives, what your staff looks like, and how sustainable your project is, there's a good chance that you could get some sort of funding. And the way, I think, international funding works, and what, we try to look for, at least in the work we do in Africa, is there's different kinds of foundations. That's kind of what I focus on, is foundations. So there are private foundations and there's public foundations, and then there's also government as well. So with private foundations, these are independent or family foundations. These are funds that come from individuals or family. If you look at like Bill and Melinda Gates, or Jeff Bezos, he has, a new huge fund. There's also company sponsored or corporate foundations. These are funds and contributions for, of a for-profit business. If you look in the States, there's the Walmart Foundation, but if you look in Africa, there's the Safaricom Foundation. I think there's tons of corporations and businesses and, mobile companies or banks, that are, regionally in every country that, are looking to provide funding for projects. It's honestly pretty good PR for them as well. And then there's public foundations. These are things like UNICEF, receiving funding from individuals, foundations, or corporations. And then I did mention for governments, I've seen this firsthand, is that reaching out to embassies, and foreign governments, there's tons of ways to receive funding. And again, like there's, a lot of times, like they want to fund people. It's good PR for them, but it's also good for you because it's, you're able to make an impact to your community. I know, at least in the Gambia, I was able to work with Yali and the Mandela Scholars. So for those in Sub-Saharan Africa on the phone today, I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're, in nearly every country at any U.S. embassy, and they're always looking to fund local projects. You don't have to be, in like a nonprofit even to get that funding, as long as you have a project and you're able, to talk about it, and you're able to get it down in paper and make a proposal, you can get that funding. So one bit of, advice or something is like, the research is so important. And a lot of times people think that you need to have, a database that you need to pay for in order to find these foundations or these funding opportunities. But, a quick Google search will go so far. You can look at organizations that you admire, that you look up to, and that you can realistically be like, and look and see who their partners are, look and see who funds them, and then get on their website and see if they offer funding opportunities. You can also sign up for philanthropy newsletters. If you just go on Google and type in that, you can sign up for newsletters, and that's how you can get, information on funding opportunities. Really identify funders as well that give money to organizations, based in your region. And again, you can do this by a quick Google search. If you just go into Google and type in, environmental education plus Nigeria plus grant, you can find so many different lists of organizations that do funding, and you can go through the website and figure out what kind of opportunities they have. And really make sure that, the donors, they match your interests, they match, your region and things like that. And, as you're looking for these foundations, you really want to see, okay, like, would they be a good partner for us? Are we a good partner for them? Think about it realistically. Do they care about the work that we do? Do they fund in our region? Have they funded similar organizations or projects? What kind of funding do they provide to organizations that maybe you have in your network or admire? So like, really find ways to just mimic what other people do. And then, as you're making your proposal, and you're doing your research, you really got to make sure that, you're able to, write down in a proposal, why is your project necessary? What problems are you trying to solve? And describe, what your community needs, and then like use credible sources to back up that statement. I do have some resources I can find a way to send out. If there's, I can talk to the organizers here, but there's some templates I can send out later. That'll help people with like any funding opportunities. It just, it gives you an overview of like, sort of how to do research, where to look, and then like what you can start typing up, on Microsoft Word or something as you're, reaching out to organizations for funding.
Yeah. Yes, that'd be very helpful, Matt. We have the database of all the participants who have joined us, so we would definitely love to share it with them. You can share it with Shay, Fola, or me, and we'd definitely like to share it. I think that'd be so important if they could find a starting point. And somewhere I think what you all spoke covered what my last question for the panel discussion was, but I would still like to add something and ask that question is, firstly, how are some ways in which educators especially can, and by educators, I just don't mean teachers within schools, but educators also who are on their own trying to educate people around them about climate and climate change and environment. How can they identify these kind of opportunities? It's one thing to know that we have these opportunities out there, but how can we rightly identify it? And secondly, I know that even if you look at CSRs or corporate donors or any other kind of people who do offer funding, they're very particular about the projects they pick. It's not that they are open to just picking any project that comes their way. So what are some key ways in which we can, I won't say stand out, but make our project effectively presentable to these donors, because that's what they tend to look at, that how is it that you're pitching your project to us? So what are some ways in which we can do that as well? So I'll open it to Shelley first and then Matt.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, just one more thing to the previous question about international donors, especially if you're looking at intergovernmental organizations, UN agencies, and even some of the international foundation, is it's very important to also relate to the international discourse. So for example, if you're talking about education, climate education, you can relate it to SDGs, like SDG 4, find out, which are the international organizations working on SDG 4, which is on education, not just SDG 4. For example, in terms of the education related to environment, SDG 12, which is on sustainable consumption production, in specifically target 12.8 of SDG 12 is on raising awareness and education. Similarly is the case for SDG 13, which is on climate change, and then SDG 13 also has a very, very specific target on raising awareness. Of course, not just only through like school-based, primary, secondary, tertiary, and research-based education, but also like general education to the public. So again, yes. So that is the thing. Now, in terms of standing out, the question that you asked just now is, of course, like depending on your idea, you could identify donors at the international level based on the international discourse out there, which is on climate education, information, on SCP, sustainable consumption production, and identify donors, or at the local level CSR or governments. The way to stand out in this aspect is to have a stakeholder buy-in. That is very, very crucial. Even today, as large organizations, which I'm a part of, most of the donors will ask you, you're doing this. Is this just something that you thought out of the blue? Is it something that just, you think is important? Do you have that buy-in from stakeholders? Especially this is the case when you are talking about, very specific, like education again. For example, you need, if it is a school education project, you need to have some school on board, the management on board. If it is more about general, education raising activities, you can have a very clear plan of communications, not just like the web-based social media, but also, in like, of course, it's not very possible in the current COVID pandemic world, but but when you have to reach out, for example, for a country like India, you would need channels to reach out to the informal sector, for example. So a lot of both like online, offline, based channels. So that is very important. Another very important thing about this thing is being creative, because communication, awareness, education is a lot about creativity. So a lot of it to stand out will depend on how you package. How you communicate. So that's going to be very important. Another very important source of funding opportunity is, I don't know what they call in other countries, but in India, there is most of the government departments, including the national government, including the subnational or state government, but also municipal and local governments, have a head called IEC. It's called Information, Education, and Communication. So, and they also have budgetary allocation for that. So it's also good to know, which department, or, which you can approach to for IEC related activities, which is information, education, and communication. And what are the kind of, tools? But yes, you have to be very clear about your communication tools, about the buy-in from stakeholders, and really come out as, one of the most creative person, aesthetic person that will certainly make you stand out.
Such valuable points there, and the whole idea of course, having a strong communication, and the idea of creativity also, I completely agree. And the way you pointed out about the idea of knowing your what your government also has to offer is very key, and I think a lot of us don't have that complete understanding. So thank you, Shelley, for that. And I'd like to direct the same question to Matt. If you can just help us understand what are some ways in which we can correctly identify the opportunities that are available around us. And if we do have these opportunities, what is the best way to put forward our projects and to ensure that it, I won't say catches attention, but it makes its way through for what we are trying to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I think, exactly what was just said is having the right package. And I think that what that means is finding the right funders, doing your research, and then writing the correct proposal. And by correct proposal, I mean, having, clear intent and following steps and making sure that things are clear and concise and to the point. So, as you're doing your research, on different funders, and maybe using some of the suggestions I mentioned before, is making sure that, is making sure that what you are asking for, making sure that your project, fits, what the foundation is approaching, so each proposal should be tailored to the foundation you're approaching. It's almost like you're writing a resume, if you're trying to get a job, you really look at, what that employer is looking for. They're going to be paying you. It's almost like, this is essentially you are applying a job for your organization. And you need to make sure that the motivations for your funding ties into what the foundation or the funder is looking for. And, making sure that it focuses on a community need and can actually make impact, and you have to think, why would I fund this proposal if you were the foundation? And you can also think of, why would I hire this person if I was the employer? And making sure that you use credible sources in order to back up your argument. And when you're reaching, I think, a big thing here is attempting strategic introductions, unless they don't want to hear from you. And what I mean by this is like, if you look on a funder's website and it says, oh, okay, we're open to people sending us proposals, or sending us emails, you have to be very strategic about it, like send them a message on LinkedIn, or find ways to, send something that's appropriate, over the phone or something like that. And just really knowing the application process for these proposals. And as I said before, you'd be surprised at the amount of information you can find with a quick Google search, or maybe, looking at some of the corporations in your region that, may have corporate funding, or maybe reaching out to embassies and stuff like that. And then, I think as you're writing the proposal, really making it something that's organized, having a statement of need, why is your project necessary? What are the problems you're trying to solve? Describe the need of the community, not your need, and using credible sources to back it up, sort of as I said before. And then, as you're writing this, make sure that, the project program and description is, again, very detailed, like really writing down, like what your concrete goals are and how you're going to achieve these goals and how they're being measured. I think like one of the biggest things is making sure as you're writing these in order to stick out from others is have, measurable outcomes. Say, hey, if we got this money, this is exactly what we do with it, and trying to get numbers in there, not just writing very vague things like, oh, we're going to plant trees and educate people. Okay, talk about how many trees you're going to plant, when and where, and talk about how many people you're going to impact and what methodologies that you're going to use to do this. And also talk about your staff as well. You really want to show that you have strong staff and they're able to support this project and, support the money, that, is going into this. I think one key thing with this with staff is like, you really need to describe the population you're serving, and also be able to hit on a variety, of demographic factors. You want you want these proposals to affect your staff, but also those you're serving, and you want it to be inclusive. You want there to be a variety of ages involved, races, ethnicities, genders, economic statuses, or a combination of all of these. And just really making sure that you like show that your organization is highlighted well. You want to show the history of your organization, the mission and vision you have, the programs you have, what you've done, and like that you have strong leadership. I think lastly is showing that you have a strong network. If you're a partner with earthaid.org, mention that in your proposal, and try to showcase work you've done with other organizations. Maybe they would reach out to these organizations to say, hey, is this organization a good fit? They're applying for, a funding proposal. It's as I said before, it's similar to a job. It's almost like a letter of recommendation. And I know that we've done this with future savers in the past. So I think these are some of the key things. I could talk more about it, but I think just having a really organized proposal and doing your research well, these are the keys, and making sure that, you show your case. It's almost like you're being interviewed for a job. So treat it like a job.
I think that line sums up so well, that it's like applying your organization for a job. And I think some very valuable points that you both shared included things like looking at the CSR options that are there around you, presenting your organization in a more organized form, building your entire package, having the creativity. And I think something else that you mentioned was the idea of networking. Try to bring in as many partners, members that you can get on board, build a strong community. And these are some good ways in which you can have a good way to put forward your organization and catch the attention of people you're trying to reach out to. And since this topic is so vital, I think for so many of us, I just want to take 5 minutes to see if anybody had questions in the audience to ask. Please feel free before we move to concluding this event. Does anyone have any questions? Please feel free to raise your hand and we can open the floor to you.
Okay, I have a question to ask.
Yes, please.
Please, can I ask? Can I go on?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, my question is to Dr. Matthew or Mr. Matthew. How do we handle the situation of, we talked about raising funds or writing a standard proposal. So how do we handle the issue where you have a project at hand and then you have written a standard proposal and then you have done all the necessary things, but still you find it difficult to acquire all this grant? So please, how do we do? Because I've seen a case where, I've seen the case where we have sent proposal, we have written, we have sent out, and still it's as if is very difficult to get it. Please, how do we, what are the organizations that that can respond quickly to all these proposals? Because to me, it's like a very difficult task over here. So please, how do we address those situations?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I find the same issue too. There's so many times where I reach out to, I reach out to foundations or organizations that I want my program at Earth Day to be funded with. And a lot of times we don't get a response. And I think one of the hardest things is sending emails. If you send an email out, people's inboxes are so flooded. And, even if you have a great proposal and you send this long document, it's like, people are busy and and time is precious. And I think when you send emails that are lengthy and maybe have like an entire proposal in there, it's hard for people to look at that. So I'd say the first step is this: if you are going to go the route of saying email, try to keep it super quick and simple. Just say, and also very professional, just drop somebody a line and say, hey, my name is, so-and-so, I live, in Nigeria or the United States, and I work with this organization. I'm curious to learn more about earthday.org. I do this, and keep it at one sentence and say, hey, would you have a time to connect on the phone just to discuss? I feel like there's some sort of synergy between, our organizations. I think leaving it very simple like that and just getting on the phone with somebody, that's the best way you're going to get a response. Because when you are talking to someone on the phone, you can really relate to somebody. You're already building a relationship, so sometimes even when I get emails, I'm guilty of this. If I get emails from people and they send a long email with a long proposal, it's I don't, not that I'm a, insanely busy person, but it's I sometimes don't have time to really look over all these proposals because I get so much things. But if someone sends me something like that, saying, hey, I'm so-and-so from here, I want to get on the phone with you because I'm interested in you and your work, I want to learn more about it, I'd be much more keen to answer them and say, hey, let's get on WhatsApp or Zoom. You can do the same thing on LinkedIn. I would say LinkedIn is such a powerful tool these days, especially with donors, is if you have a really clean looking LinkedIn, you can probably, if you don't have one, just do a Google search or YouTube search and figure out how to make a really professional profile, and then researching who works these organizations that may be involved with, funding and things like that, connecting with them and sending them a very light note saying, hey, a quick introduction, I want to get on the phone with you. I think that's sort of the best route, is trying not to only focus on sending emails, but finding other ways to reach out to people. And then go with people who you may already have connections with. If you have connection with an organization, say, hey, I see you guys are connected with this organization. Are you able to get me connected with someone there? I would love to get on the phone with them. I think getting on the phone is how you're able to really work with somebody. So try your best to do that. And be creative. And don't send too much. I think short, sweet, and simple. That's the best route.
Thank you, Matt. There are two more hands raised. If it's all right with two panelists, we'll just take the last two questions. Oyewol, if I'm saying the names right, please you can unmute and ask your question.
Oyewole Fatula.
Okay. Yes, Oyewole, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself if you're there. Okay, otherwise we'll begin with Galaxy J6. I am sorry, I don't know what your name is, but that's how I see your name here. So you can unmute and ask your question.
If you have a question, you could just unmute yourself and then ask your question. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I want to ask because I have a team of organizations, and a lot of them are doing very great things, and in conservation, and we all have this problem of funding, and I also believe that through third party, I also believe in the possibility of third party funding. Yeah, but then how can we identify organizations that operate with third party funding through that model? Like an organization gets the main grant, and then it now spreads it to some other sub organizations that have been really identified, and verified that they are doing a lot. We have a lot of organizations. My team, I have a lot of organizations that are really doing very great things. Real, long time work, really doing things in conservation, doing things in recycling, and it's just things that are very good for the climate. So how do we get to this third party funding? How do we explore the opportunities in that model? Yeah.
Shirley, Matt, any of you would like to take that question?
Right. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure if I understand the correct of the third party funding exactly, but of course there are various models of funding. One is there are calls, there are open calls, funders or organizations, international organizations, or even governments. They announce calls and they are very specific in what they want, at least at a broad level. And then, you apply in that call, and just like Matt said, that you have to really have a good, it is almost like applying for a job, and you really have to do your research well, and you have to put together the package well, which appeals to the funder. So if you're applying to to UN and you're not really relating to their call, or relating to, even if you're approaching them more proactively, then you have to just have that messaging correct. The other model of funding is when you approach proactively, when you know that you have an idea, and then you approach to organization. In this case, it may be anyone. It could be local organizations, like local communities, governments, mayors. It could be like CSR funding. You could even actually use crowdfunding. In fact, for youth projects, one actually should also, this is another model of crowdfunding, wherein you start small, for initiating something, in your own community, pool together funding, send send that out to others who may want to kind of fund as well. So in this particular aspect, this is also like an option. The other thing is, now of course in both these, largely the idea is yours, but then also there is another way in which a lot of youth projects and a lot of education related projects can be a part of, if you approach as partner organizations. Say for example there is already an initiative going on, if there is already a large, say an NGO or a think tank or even university, working on a specific issue on a large project, sometimes they also look for for subcontracting, very specific components. Say if they want to reach out to youth, if they want to have a stronger outreach thing, the only way to identify is actually to communicate. There is no shortcut to that. I mean, whatever way you want to, is really just to have, have that communication channel. And by that, it just doesn't mean email. You have to go, you have to even like, you have to exhaust all channels. You have to try to call them, request them to set up a meeting, but also approach them through common contacts. I mean, there is no silver bullet. And there is no like sort of a single answer, I can't say like, okay, click this and you will know what you want. The more important thing is just to have that communication, two-way communication channel sort of open. It can be directly to the funder, and where you have a direct arrangement with a potential like funding organization, and between you, whether it's via a call or via direct conversation, or it is as a partner organization. Again, even as a partner organization, sometimes you can be involved right from the proposal stage. So it is very important for you to perhaps have your own brochure of what you want to offer, and start approaching organizations. Say you're just small and you're starting small. So sometimes you may want to work in partnership with larger organizations. So you may just want to say that, hey, this is us. We are offering these things, and we can help you in these things. So if there are any potential proposal opportunities where we can partner with you, you can of course take a lead, but you can keep us as one of our partners. That is one way. And there is also a chance that there might already be an existing project. So again, like for these things, the important and the most important thing is to communicate and keep that channels open. So have these various things in mind. I mean, one just doesn't have to apply for a project on, by yourself. You may want to do it with another big organization, not just an organization. You may want to do it with the government. So there are so many models of like getting your idea or your project into action. So but I think in this, the most important thing is keep that channel of communication.
Thank you, Shelley. And Matt, yes, if you want to add something. Matt, you had mentioned that you would want your colleague to unmute and share. So maybe you can, I'll hand the floor to you for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to add on to some of the contributions in terms of funding, I work with Matt and the other earthday.org Africa staff. We launched last year through Earth Day and our partnering organizations in Zimbabwe, what we call Enchivero Challenge, which was a multidisciplinary sporting event that had running, motorcycles, like bicycles, canoeing, for the purpose of fundraising, getting some resources from the area, which is Lake Chivero, so that we can implement some environmental projects within the lake. So what you have to do also maybe is co-opt this initiative or this idea, you be creative. What's just needed is to probably engage the local authorities within your area so that they give you the permission to do such initiatives, and be creative on what activities that are fun for people, because this comes in as an ecotourism initiative. So maybe that type of creativity can help you and give you resources to fund new projects as well at local level.
Thank you so much for that insight. While I see Oyewale's hand up, I think your question is directed to Dr. Richard, who is currently not in the meeting. We will definitely make sure your question reaches. If you do have a question for Matt or Shelley, please feel free to unmute and ask them. Otherwise, we move towards concluding the session. Thank you so much, Matt and Shelley, for this very insightful and a very critical session of the webinar. And the reason why we did want to ensure that we open the floor for questions was so that we can have some sort of engagement with the audience and for them to also have an opportunity to understand right from you all what they can do. So thank you so much once again for all the pointers that you shared. I'm sure there is so much that we can take away from here today and implement it in trying to scale our projects within our countries, communities, and areas. And Matt, as you're offered to share some templates, please feel free to share it to Fola, Shay, or me, and we would love to share it with the people who are here today. Thank you so much for that. And with that, I would like to hand the floor to Shay to conclude the event. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, and wishing everyone a very happy year today. Shay, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Priyanka. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined this webinar, from Dr. Richard, Matt Lifla, Afronelli, Dr. Norman from Mexico, Dr. Adiekor, Prachi, Sheyadebote, Mida, Samuel, Benson. I can see you just joined us, Willie. The young group from India, Dr. Hachi, a fantastic man, Soja, Seth, and Sally also. That's a very fantastic time. I really want to appreciate everybody for honoring us this year, 2021. The webinar, I believe it's a success. Without you, it wouldn't have been. I want to appreciate Elvis Foundation, the Pop Movement, Healthy Africa, for your support, for everything you're doing. Specifically, Matt, you're a fantastic person, to be honest. The support for this organization is immense, and without your effort, we can't actually achieve much. And I want to appreciate my team for last day. I want to appreciate Priyanka, Thompson, and the likes of volunteers around Nigeria. I want to say thank you for your efforts. And I believe that it's not just all about debating and talking about climate education. It's all about taking these things, these tools that we have learned in this 2-day webinar, to our communities, to create a sustainable future for the younger generations. We have talked about policy, leadership, and advancing climate education. Let us look into means of how we can, take climate policies, to another level, lobbying, trying to create awareness and also to create the urgency for our leaders in the legislators, in the local communities, how they can, make laws and how we can push these bills so that this can be enacted and also executed accordingly. And then we have talked about the roles of science and technology. This is a science and technology world, whereby wherever we are thinking of any solution, we need to, to make it tech-based. Tech-based solutions are the ones, we can use in advancing climate education. Of course, like Dr. Richard said, we cannot neglect the traditional ways of solving problems in Africa, but it's very important as well to make these traditional means and solutions with the recent technology in trying to bring solution to climate crisis in Africa. And then the role of advocacy is something that we need to always, to hammer on. We cannot say because the government are not listening or the government is not listening to us, or maybe they are not doing the right thing, then we should stop or we should be tired. I know sometimes as young people, as non-profit, like many of us, complain we are not getting the right funding, we're not getting the support. It's just like fighting against the wind, and it seems like we're not seeing results. But definitely when we don't stop talking, when we don't stop moving, there is an assurance tomorrow that we're going to get results to our cries, and definitely climate justice will be delivered accordingly. And then I want to, and also, the the importance of reforestation in Africa and in the world, in our communities, cannot be overemphasized. Let's look into ways that we can use to mobilize our communities and, think about their well-being, the economic value of whatever we are doing, of our projects, so that they can take it seriously. When they see it from the business mind's point of view, definitely they are going to take it more seriously. They want to do more, and then we can create the desired change. And then to our oceans, we need to protect our oceans. We need to, because the oceans are definitely suffering at the moment because of the global warming. I believe that what we have learned also, we can protect the biodiversity, the marine biodiversity, and then we can protect our oceans, and we can have a cleaner oceans, and also a cleaner environment. And then when we talk about the final one, which is very, very important, I want to encourage young people to keep looking inward, local donors, families, friends who can help their mission. You don't always depend on international organizations. You can see people in your environment. You can see even schools, even local companies. They can support your initiative. They can support just one tree to be planted. They can support one child to be educated. These are things we need to also look into. When we look into our local solutions to solve our local problems, I think we have a long way to go, and that can be a step at the right direction in taking the biggest steps. So this concludes this fantastic 2021 webinar, with smile, with happiness, with fulfillment. I want to say thank you, and I believe that next year will even be greater, and I would love to see every one of you. I would like to keep connecting. Future Saver is here in Nigeria. Elvis Foundation is there in India. POP is there in the United States and so many African countries. And the Health Day Africa, very, very strong and supporting organizations around the world. So I want to say thank you once again. And I'm so happy to see you. And I would glad to see you next year again. Happy Health Day 2021, everybody.
Thank you, Shay. Happy Earth Day, everyone, and hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you all are. And yes, we hope to see you all next year, Earth Day webinar 2022, hopefully. And please do share we have shared all the contacts and social media in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to us. Just as Matt shared, I think in an hour's time, there's a Earth Day live panel happening on the Facebook page of Earth Day Africa. So please do join in, and that's sure to be interesting and very enriching as well. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for joining, and we hope to be connected with each and every one of you. Happy Earth Day.
Okay, can we switch on our video to take a picture, like a group picture? Please. Just everybody switch on your video and try to give a thumbs up. Just try to give it a thumbs up so that we can have a group. Yeah, just a thumbs up for Mother Head. A thumbs up for Mother Head. You can switch on you can unmute yourself, and then you can say hello in your language. You can say good night in your language. You can say bye in your language, and so happy Head Day in your language. Yeah.
Everyone, please switch on.
Just switch on and let's have this group picture. Yeah.
Yes. Are we ready? Yeah, some more people are switching on. If I'll wait for a minute. Okay, I'm clicking.
Yeah,
1, 2.
So
1,
1, 2,
3. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have one more
thing.
From Nigeria.
Thank you, thank you, Dr. Ash. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you didn't hear my voice because I was.
Thank you, Dr. Norma.
Awesome.
Thank you, Bertrand. Good to see your face. Cheers, everybody.
Guys.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Shelley, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Ash.
Bye. Thank you, Koma.
Happy Earth Day and a happy
birthday.
birthday.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Norma.
Hey.
Thank you, Dr.
Dr.
Norma. I think you can get some sleep.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John, for joining. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye, Shelley. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Ivan, for joining.
Bravo.
Thank you for inviting me.
Everyone. God bless you.
God bless you all.
Cheers.
Hermano.
Hermano.
Hasta pronto, mi hermano. Gracias.
Hasta pronto.
Bye, Ale.
Bye, bye, bye.
Yes. Bye,
Thank you.
doctora.
Okay, no, this is your